Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks. Today with another interview about the current situation here in Spain. Today we go to Tenerife, to the south of Tenerife, and we interview Alan, who's a long-term resident there in the south of the island. He's an author, he's got interesting opinions on what's happening at the moment, so let's go and see what he has to say. All right, good. So how are you today, Alan?
Very good, thank you, Stuart. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So we'll just get a bit of your background, Alan. You're from Sheffield originally.
A long time ago. I left 25 years ago. Yeah.
Spent a long time in Germany.
I met my wife in Tenerife 25 years ago and flew back to Sheffield, and we communicated for a year backwards and forwards. And at the end of that year, when I'd completely run out of money, I decided to take the jump and move to Osnabrück in Germany. And I spent 18 years in Germany and still with my wife now.
Good. And in the last 10 years, you've gone to live in Tenerife, the south of Tenerife, on a permanent basis. Is that right?
Yeah, we moved in 2012 from Germany to Tenerife. We're initially the north of Tenerife, and 5 years ago, we moved to the south, in a place called Costa Silencio, which is near the airport. It's between the airport and Los Cristianos, if you know that area. And usually we have the flights coming in here, or we see the planes going by. Obviously, at the moment, it's very quiet. Actually, I was thinking of setting up this outside, but it got a little bit windy. But it's so quiet outside. Yeah. Normally, that just wouldn't be possible, you know.
Good. And checking some of the things you mentioned in your message that you sent to me, you're an author.
I am, yeah.
You're a tango dancer.
I'm a tango dancer and organizer and DJ, yeah.
Okay. You're an advocate for veganism.
I've been on a plant-based diet for the last 5 years, and before that was vegetarian. That's
Good.
Right.
And a businessman as well.
I've had several businesses, yeah, and lots of. I've basically been working for myself, and I had a company in Germany. Still got a company in Germany for the last, we can say, almost 20 years. So I can't imagine now. I think I'm spoiled. I don't think I would be any use to any employer anymore, Stuart.
Okay. And what's your take on the whole lockdown situation that we've been experiencing here, and in particular from a Canary Island point of view?
Well, I mean, from a Canary Island point of view, my own opinion is that it's been over the top. If you look at the numbers of people infected and the number of deaths and so on, and compare it to other places, it's a very, very, very low level. So for me to close down the whole island, to close the restaurants, the bars, the hotels, all the other businesses, people here in the Canary Islands, it's not the richest place in the world. It lives from tourism, and it seems to be disproportionate. It seems to me that all the decisions have been made in Madrid. And it's like Madrid is almost the center of the corona world. And, I think of Tenerife, it's something like 2.5 hours flight for, south, 3 hours from Madrid. So, and we're obviously an island. So I think it could have been handled here differently.
Yeah. Especially
with the things with, like you can't even go out to exercise and things like that. Here in the south where we are, there's virtually no corona cases at all. The virus more or less doesn't exist here.
Yep.
And, to be not able to go out to exercise, which is important, I think, not just for my health, but in general for everybody's health, is I find that over the top. And I do find it a little bit difficult to understand why it's almost like, why especially the islands or some other parts of the country perhaps could have been handled, I think, differently. I understand the logic behind it. They probably think, well, if we start making exceptions, everybody was saying, well, why not us? And I presume that's the thinking behind it.
Well,
But
we can only presume that that's the thinking, Alan. I mean, there has been a lot of pressure from the Canary government to try to get some type of de-escalation happening there before, but of course everything has to be run from Madrid, and the health minister made it quite clear last week that they're in charge, they're the ones controlling everything, and everybody else just has to wait until we give the instructions. So, I mean, I can understand the frustrations because there's lots of places also in Andalusia as well that don't have a lot of cases, and I've had people commenting that they live in a rural area and they it's easier for them to go out into the mountains rather than go to a local park, and they're not going to be in contact with anybody. But situation's the situation, as we see. And I remember you saying yesterday that a lot of the confinement measures are going to be quite negative for people's health, obviously from that point of view.
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the immune system is, the best. If we agree that there is a virus and it's as serious as we're being told, that we have to do everything we can to strengthen our immune system. That's a logical thing. And, for viruses and for immune defense, vitamin D and vitamin C are really important to strengthen the immune system. So when you lock people indoors, obviously, vitamin D is the sun vitamin. It comes from the sun. We go out in the sun and vitamin D is formed. So you take away the sun and the fresh air and you basically stop producing vitamin D. It's, as far as I've not seen any official government announcements, not just in Spain, but anywhere, actually emphasizing to people that they should be making sure they're getting fresh vegetables, going out in the, if they can, to go out on the balcony and get as much sun as possible. I've not seen that advice. And there's another aspect of it as well, because your immune system is also weakened through fear. If you tell everybody there's this great danger and fill the television screens with people dying and people in masks and spacesuits and then obviously it creates a lot of fear. And I've seen that here in Tenerife, and I think it's a common thing across the world that people are, probably quite rightly, with all what they've seen in television, really frightened. And fear, then it increases your cholesterol. I forget the name. Is it not cholesterol? The other one, cortisol, which weakens the immune system. So that the fear combined with the lack of social contact is also it's. I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions has to be asked about the sense of some of the measures, especially for me. The big one is really the exercise one, because you look around the world, and I think as far as I can make out, really it's just Spain. I'm not sure what the situation is in Italy. I don't know if they're allowed out to exercise, but I know a lot of the other countries have allowed that, and I think that's something that perhaps should have been handled perhaps differently. As for me, especially the exercise getting out point of view.
Yeah, from what people have told me, it seems to be a characteristic of other Spanish-speaking countries. I think Colombia's been quite strict, Ecuador, Argentina, Peru maybe even as well, not allowing people to go outside and exercise. But it does seem that in Europe, again, I'm not sure on the situation in Italy, but I'm pretty sure they had a fairly serious lockdown as well. But Spain has been very, very strict on that, keeping people confined to, in a lot of the cases, Alan, very small apartments for 42 days.
Can't imagine. I just cannot imagine. A family, children. I mean, for me now, my children are old and they're older. Yeah. They no longer live with us, and so for me, obviously, that's not been an issue. But I know I've seen the size of some of these small apartments, and I presume some of them perhaps without much daylight, and if you're in somewhere like that for 6 weeks, and all the fear that's coming through the television, I don't know. I mean, I'm very skeptical about the whole situation anyway, Stuart. The whole. For me, I'm far more concerned about freedom and liberty and so on than I am actually about the virus. This is the thing that worries me, because I think that if we lose our liberties and our freedoms, that this will, be far more damaging than the virus in the long term. and there's obviously going to be a lot of collateral damage, not to mention the economy.
Yeah.
People are not getting operations in hospital now for other diseases like cancer and all these other things. So, my view is absolutely that there should be a debate. And I don't follow the Spanish news as much as you do. I mean, that's the reason that I tune into your channel, so I can kind of get an update on what's happening. But I do watch a lot of what's going on in Germany, and I do watch a lot of what's going on in the UK. And it seems to me that in Germany, there's a far more open debate. There's a side, even the mainstream media are beginning to ask questions. Is this really proportionate? Is this really a sensible thing that we're doing here? And these questions are being asked. At the moment, they're still kind of being battered away, but you can hear the voices are definitely getting louder and louder in Germany. In the UK, I don't think that debate's really happening yet. In the UK, it seems to be more about, have we got enough safety equipment? It's all about the nurses, the NHS.
Similar to here, right?
Is that the situation in Spain?
Well, it's always been based on the health services and their ability to cope with the demand, basically.
Yeah, that's the same thing that's going on in the UK. And obviously these are issues, but the bigger issue for me is the general policy. Is it a sensible policy? This is the thing for me that's not really being questioned. And they say that in the UK, 90% of people are in favour of. I think that number's coming down slightly, but obviously the vast majority of people apparently seem to be in favour with what with
the way things are being handled.
And that's not how I feel. I feel as though something's not right, and if something doesn't feel right, usually it isn't right. That's how I usually think about things,
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned yesterday that a lot of the comments on the videos that I'm putting out are pointing in that direction, though, right, Alan?
It seems to be, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about your channel is that you're not a conspiracy theorist. You're not. You really have. It's difficult to kind of pin you down on an opinion. You come across as I think you try to give a kind of fact-based opinion on. That's your channel. So it's interesting to read in the comments that I don't know. I mean, you said yourself it's difficult to say exactly what percentages, but certainly well above 50% of the comments seem to be going in the direction of, liberty, freedom of speech, the right to gather. If you take away from people, you say, you've got to stay in your house, you're not allowed out, or we'll arrest you or fine you this, or you're stifling debate. You're not allowing the debate to take place, because if people can get together and say, well, does this make sense? What's going on? Does any of this actually, and obviously some people will say, yeah, well, it does make sense because people are dying, and there can be a debate. And I think at the moment, this alternative view is just not being allowed. Anybody who questions it is, oh, you don't care about the old people dying. And I find that's the thing that bothers me. I'm not particularly young myself. I'm 54. I mean, okay, I like to think I'm young, but 54, I'm getting on a little bit as well. My mother's 76 years old. My dad's in poor health. He's 79. So I do care about old people, but I also care about our freedom and our liberty. And I think it's important that we have the debate. And I don't think the debate is happening, or people really don't care about that. I don't know. It's just something that surprised me about the whole situation,
Yeah. So you're thinking that maybe the Swedish way of dealing with things was a better way to go?
It just seems to make sense, doesn't it? If you've told that, I mean, at the very beginning of all this, I remember when it first kind of broke, I think it was second week in February when I kind of really started noticing that, and even at that point, the numbers were coming out and say, this is a disease that mainly affects elderly people, mainly people not just old, but people who've got underlying health conditions. I think in Italy, the numbers came out, I think 98% of the people who died in Italy had underlying health conditions. So it seemed, even from the beginning, to be affecting elderly people with underlying health conditions. So surely it would have been sensible to protect that group of people. And I think that is the way that Sweden went. I think Sweden said to the population, look, there's this virus happening. We can take precautions. We can do social distancing. We can do all of these sensible things, and we're going to put all our resources into protecting, the old people's homes, the elderly, and so on. It just seems to me to have been a sensible approach, and Sweden is kind of being pilloried as this country who's gone out in the extremes, and I see it the other way around. I think every other country is the countries that are extreme, and it's actually Sweden that seems to be taking the sensible approach to it. That's the way I see it, anyway.
Yeah, well, that's it. There does seem to be a lot of support for that, but again, there is a lot of, as you said before, as soon as you make one of those comments, Alan, a lot of people do jump on you and say, how insensitive your point of view is, and not thinking about the rest. That's right. So there is it's a complicated situation to try to get for me at least, to try to get a handle on exactly what's going on. I mean, yeah, you're right. I try not to give a political point of view. I'll be the first person to say that. I can understand both points of view on everything. I mean, you, for example, as you said before, you're a vegetarian before a vegan. I can understand the point of view of vegans. I can understand the point of view of people that eat. I can understand both points of view a lot of the time, and that's one of the problems that I have. And I sometimes can't. I can't take that one point of view, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't seem to have a problem with that, Stuart. I mean, with the plant-based. Okay, so the reason I decided to move to a plant-based diet was through health reasons. My father, when he was aged 65, got heart disease, and he went to the doctor. He was given blood thinning pills, and then he was given a stent. I don't know if you know what it is. It's where they put a thing in your heart and open up the arteries. 2 years later, he was then wheeled in and had his three bypass, where they take a saw, Stuart. They take literally a saw and saw your chest open and pull it open, and they stitch your own. They take a vein out of your leg and they stitch it to your heart and then sew you back up again. It's a pretty extreme process. So my dad went through all this, and I read a book 5 years ago, and in 1990, a research had been published in the Lancet, so a highly respectable medical journal, and it had been proven that a plant-based diet, so just fruit, vegetables, beans. I mean, there's a whole universe of lovely, healthy foods out there. But it had been proven that if you went on a purely plant-based diet, that not only could you stop the progression of heart disease, it had actually been proved to actually reverse it.
Oh, really?
And that was why I got really interested, because nobody had actually explained this to my father. He'd just been, you need these pills, you need a stent, you need a heart bypass. To be honest, my dad would never have gone on a plant-based diet, but nobody ever said this to him. So, and when I first read that, I thought, well, this can't be true. Surely this can't be true. But when you look into it, and there's a lot of information out there, it is true. And the reason that doctors don't tell you and is because they just don't believe people would do that. Nobody would people would basically rather have the tablets, the stents, and the bypass
rather than change their diet. Yeah, that's it.
And for me, and when you go on then this journey, you then move. You think, well, and then you find out the same is true for diabetes too. It also highly correlated with also basically every chronic disease can be linked to diet. And so you begin to question things, or this is what happened to me. You begin to think, well, if this is true, what else has been hidden? What else has not been, what else, why didn't I know this? So I started to question a lot of what's going on.
Hence your skepticism currently.
Yeah, well, the first thing you do, and I think most plant-based vegans would probably agree with you. The first thing you do when you've actually discovered, the truth about food is you question everything. Because
Yeah.
if something so fundamental as food, is not common knowledge, then you just stop believing a lot of things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and it certainly made me become a lot more skeptical, but also question things a lot more than previously.
Yeah, I
But
saw. Sorry, I saw you have a YouTube channel where you talk about being vegan and different things. I saw one of your videos which was, can you be a vegetarian, or what was it? Can you eat meat and be an animal lover at the same time? Was that? Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Do you want me to? Yeah, you like that, don't you? Well, the thing is, we've all been. I mean, I grew up at home. We had a Labrador. Labradors.
Yeah.
Still lovely dogs, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up with a Labrador, and I loved our Labrador. I used to take our Labrador for a walk every day, and when our first one died, we got another one, and I always thought of myself as an animal lover, and I know my parents certainly would classify themselves as animal lovers, but if you think about it, it's completely hypocritical, because you're saying I'm an animal lover, but at the same time you're eating them. And I was eating animals in the morning for breakfast, at lunchtime, and in the evening.
Yeah.
And and then you say, well, people will say to you, well, but Al, that's a dog, it's a pet, but what you're eating is a pig. But in China, they do eat dogs. They don't see the difference between a pig and a dog, because the Chinese are actually right. There is no difference. It's an animal. A dog is an animal. A pig is an animal. A chicken is an animal, and a cow is an animal. And if you start to think about it, it is. I don't know what they call it. Is it cognitive dissonance, where you say you've got a dog and you love your dog, which was the same for me, but at the same time you're inflicting cruelty. I mean, let's not go into the cruelty to animal. I mean, that is, it's awful what goes on. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of the many videos that I'm done, where I'm actually creating a course on how to become, how to go from being normal, so a normal guy or a normal woman, to transition into a plant-based diet. And that course actually is not going to be online. That what you've seen actually is just me experimenting. Actually, it will become part of the course later, but at the moment it was just put it up there. Okay. Yeah, I will be taking it down later.
Well, what I'll do is I'll leave a link so people can check your channel out, Alan, if they want to get in contact with you in the future to maybe have a look at that course or read your book. We can do that. Just a quick question before we finish. What's it like being a vegan in Spain? Because obviously Spain is a country where pork is king.
Well, you're not kidding there, Stuart. It's absolutely true. It's far easier to be vegan and vegetarian in the UK or in Germany. Even Italy is actually a very good place to go. If you're a vegan, you can go to Italy. There was even vegan food at the airport in Italy.
Oh, really?
In Spain, yeah, it is difficult. In Spain, I think it seems to me that the awareness around plant-based eating, about veganism, is several years behind the rest of or certainly parts of Europe that I've traveled to. But I did see recently, there was was it in the Spanish version of The Economist? It might have been. There was an article about whether it would make sense or not for Spain actually also to move in that direction. So I'm hopeful that maybe, but we've had all sorts of adventures, Stuart. We've been to tango. We went to a tango event in Antequera. You know where Antequera is?
Yeah, Malaga.
It's and lovely place. And they said, well, after dance, we're all going to be getting together and we're going to have a meal together. Do you want to take part? And it was a 4-star hotel. It was the really famous, I can't remember. It's a famous chain anyway. And I said, well, we'd love to take part, but is there any chance of getting a vegetarian meal? I mean, we didn't say vegan. I mean, that would have been, no problem. But you know, the evening arrived. We were all sitting there together, and the starter appeared, and it was a salad with some prawns, some shrimps, and we got exactly the same with the prawns taken off.
Oh, okay.
And then the main meal arrived, and you know, in Spain, the main meal is often meat. It's usually, I don't know, a piece of meat with a little bit of vegetable or
meat or fish. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we got exactly the same as everybody else with the meat removed. So
okay,
yeah, that kind of sums up the mentality. It was almost like they were saying, well, you know, if they're vegetarian, it's their own fault. So I think as far as that's concerned in Spain, but what you can do if you are in Spain and you're thinking that there are lots of options depending on where you live. You can go to, you know, Asian restaurants, so like Indian restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Thai restaurants. These places, they'll always have a good selection of vegetable-based foods, you know. So there's a
veggie korma.
It's just not korma perhaps because it's got cream in it, but it's just a case of knowing.
Sorry for my ignorance.
No, but it's just a case of really knowing, you know, where to go, and you know, it's fine. Yeah, you can make it in Spain as a vegan.
All right, great. Now I'm going to have to wrap the conversation up there, Alan, because I've got to talk to somebody else here now at 6. But thanks a lot for your input today. And as I said before, we'll leave a link below where people can find your YouTube channel so they can check out your videos.
I'll send you a message with the links that you can publish. Because like I say, the video's on there at the moment, but I'll be taking them off later anyway.
You don't want people to see them?
No, they can't. They can at the moment. They're free to watch them. That's fine, but they will become part of the course. So in maybe a month or two, they will be taken down because they will be part of the course that I'm making. Yeah.
All right. Well, even a link to the book that you have there as well. Whatever you prefer. Okay.
Okay, Stuart. That's great.
All right. Great. Thanks for the chat, Alan, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks,
Stuart. All right. Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So there we go. That was the interview, and I hope you liked it. Now, if you want to take part in one of these interviews, there's a link in the section below where you can get in contact with me. Feel free to do that. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego. Stay safe.